H2 Edu Associates is formed with an intention to reach out to educators and provide them with training, guidance, and mentorship programs.
Our mission at H2 Edu Associates is to empower educators, and our vision is to equip educators with edification and an aura of learnedness. झुंझर वाले ठेलू वाले जुन्नू का बाबा, किस्सों का कहानियों का गीतों का छावा, हे आया आया ठेलू वाला जुन्नू का बाबा. Hi all, good evening everybody. I am Hiran Pagadia, founder H2 Edu Associates, along with Ms. Harsha Ramaya, bringing you the third episode of our expert talk. And we have a professional storyteller, Miss Unnati Shah, with us today. Hi, Unnati.
Hey, Hiran. How are you doing?
Very well. Thank you for being on the show, Unnati.
Thanks.
And he is going to take us on the topic, how stories can connect. Unnati is a passionate storyteller from Ahmedabad. She has been in this field since 2019 and is formally trained in professional storytelling by Ms. Sharon Matthews, an international storyteller. Unnati truly believes in the power of stories, and she uses stories and storytelling as a tool to train children to polish their public speaking skills, language development skills, and mainly to build confidence in them. She also conducts training for adults in the art of storytelling. Hi, Unnati.
Thank you, Hiran. Thanks for introducing me this way.
Yes, so Unnati, we have always heard when you tell a story, you spark a connection. That is how humans have communicated since the beginning of the time by telling stories. And stories have been told since there were humans learned to read and write. Everyday events became stories to tell children. Scribes and priests told stories of religious affairs, and leaders told heroic tales of their adventures. These stories have passed on through generations and generations, and some filled up our history books, some are an integral part of our culture, and some embedded in our family values. Stories are all around us. We may not recognize them, but they are there. So, Unnati, tell me the first thing, is there a storyteller in each one of us?
Okay. So, there is a saying that says that 65% of human interactions are made up of stories. So when 65% of human interactions are made up of stories, and from the morning till evening, like from the time we wake up till the time we go to sleep, what that we are doing is we are telling stories. Okay, you know what happens is that human mind is a very, very complex organ with billion and trillions of neurons built with each other. And likewise, the world in which we live, that world is also full of so many informations, right?
Yeah.
Now, to this information, when our brain receives, our brain needs a way to channelize that information, okay? And our brain use story as a tool to channelize that information that we are receiving, and that is how it processes and it makes sense to us. So yes, stories are all around us. We cannot separate ourselves from stories. And so it is an extremely powerful communication tool, right? Say, for example, if in a corporate world, if somebody is on leave और वो 5 दिन के बाद resume करते हैं, यार पता है क्या हुआ, you were just not there for 5 days और यहाँ पे तो क्या हंगामा हुआ था, and what comes out is a story, you know. And then friends meets and gossips, यार पता है उसके love story, यार I tell you क्या love story थी, मतलब वो लड़के ने जो उस लड़की को प्रपोज किया, what it is a story. When a child comes back from school and a mother asks, तो क्या किया आज स्कूल में, टीचर ने क्या पढ़ाया, तुमने क्या नाश्ता किया था, and what comes out is a story. And a husband comes from office, or if somebody has gone and travel and they come back, whatever that we are talking, we are speaking, and whatever information that we are receiving, when it makes sense, it makes sense through stories. So as a human being, we are not just surrounded by stories. As a human being, we are wired for stories. Okay, if I tell you, Hiran and Harsha, I have an interesting story to tell you. मैं बता रही हूँ, if you listen to the story, you'll have goosebumps, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to grab your attention.
Yeah.
I'm going to grab the listener in you. So that is the power of stories, and that is how humans are connected through stories. For example, if I'm traveling and if Harsha is also traveling with me and say, I want to start a conversation, and I would say, hi Harsha, I'm Unnati, and I'm just traveling here, so this and that. So Harsha will say, oh yes, Unnati. And what comes out? How are we going to connect? We are going to connect on the ground of stories. So I'm going to tell her, Acha Harsha, you know what? I was an HR professional, and then I worked as an HR for 15 years, but then I got married, and then I had a child, and I was not able to continue. I searched for another profession, and that's how I turned into a storyteller. And then Harsha will share her story. And on those ground of stories, we have established a strong connect. That is how stories connect human beings with each other. And yes, so we have the storyteller in us. But now, what kind of a storyteller are we is a very subjective thing, because now let me tell you, or let me give you this example. I want to go for a movie, and I'm thinking, okay, let me just check the review. कैसी है movie? मैं अपने पैसे waste ना कर दूं. And I go and ask my one friend, say Manisha, यार Manisha, मुझे movie देखनी है, कैसी है? हाँ ठीक है, अच्छी है, हीरो हीरोइन अच्छे हैं, डायलॉग्स भी अच्छे हैं, ठीक है, जा सकती है यार, मतलब कर सकते हो तुम, देख सकते हो. Okay, fine. I'm not convinced. I'm going to my other friend called Kajal and said, Kajal, यार ये movie देखनी है, क्या करूं? क्या movie, I tell you. I mean, the climax is such I never expected, man. The hero and the heroine, what they did, was out of this world. I don't know how this director thought about this. And the locations were just amazing. Songs and music and drama, तो मतलब full है यार, पैसा वसूले जा के देख कर आ. Which story am I going to buy?
True.
The second one. So
the second one, yeah, you'll buy the second one because there's so much of explanation in that.
Yeah, so we all are storytellers, but what kind of stories are we telling? It depends upon what kind of human beings are we. अगर मैं बहुत sad सी human beings हूँ, तो my stories are going to be like that. And if somebody is like very enthu like me, I will keep on telling so many information. The person would say, अरे देख ही लेना चाहिए इसका, तो मतलब ये तो देखना ही चाहिए, ये तो होना ही चाहिए, So this is the power of story. The story can either make you or break you. The stories that we tell inside our head to our own self, that creates the human beings what we are today. This is the power of stories, I would say. And there is one story that I'm remembering, how powerful it is that, okay, give me a moment to recall the story, because it has just popped out in my mind. Once upon a time, on a busy street, there was a beggar and he was blind. तो सुबह से वो बैठा हुआ है और उसने एक बोर्ड बनाया है, I'm a blind person, please help me out. That's a very busy street. People comes and go. Hardly there are 2-3 people who are putting some coins into his bowl. So maybe कोई मेरे जैसा वहां से गुजर रहा है, and he says, "अरे यार, this man is really needy. I think I should help this man out." तो मैं जाती हूँ वहां पे और मैं उस बोर्ड को उल्टा करके उस पे कुछ और लिख देती हूँ and say, Uncle, see the magic now. I have done something. I've done a magic. Now you see what happens with. And just within 2-3 hours, the bowl is full of coins. 2-3 घंटे के बाद मैं उसी स्ट्रीट से गुजरती हूँ. I go and ask, so uncle, क्या हुआ? So said, beta, I cannot see, but you must tell me what you have done. Then I am telling that man that मैंने कुछ ज्यादा नहीं किया, मैंने आपकी स्टोरी को थोड़ा सा चेंज कर दिया. You had returned that I'm blind and please help me. To which I have returned, this is a beautiful sunny day, but I can't see it. I'm blind. Care to help? So this is how story infuse emotions. This is how stories connect. And this is the magic of stories.
Absolutely.
Wonderfully
So
said,
well.
wonderfully, Unnati. And very rightly, you put together that the kind of storyteller you are completely reflects on the kind of person you are, the
Yes.
same thing that was written on the board that you mentioned, you just changed the perspective, being a storyteller, and it changed the entire thought process. So this is all about stories, and very, very rightly you pointed out that each one of us is a storyteller. When it comes to coming from the office, asking the husband or the child, or giving an excuse for not coming to the job, whatever, everything. So basically, we all are drama people, if I'm not wrong. But
Yes. Yes.
drama का जो performance है depends on how creative you are.
Correct. 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 And it's a very, very
So
powerful communication tool as well. It's a very, very powerful
absolutely,
communication tool as
absolutely.
well.
So Unnati, my next question is going to be a little technical. So you very well explained the importance. I mean, what are stories? How each one of us is a storyteller. But now my question is, what is the importance and the effect of storytelling?
Okay.
And this I'm asking
So,
from a child's perspective, basically, that when we are narrating a story to a child, what is the importance and what is the effect on that child's mind?
okay. So let me start something like this that we all know Mr. Albert Einstein, right? And Mr. Albert Einstein had a very close friend, और उसका छोटा सा बेटा था, and she
Hmm.
wanted her child to be as genius as Mr. Einstein. So one day she went to Mr. Einstein and said, "You know what? I want my child to be intelligent. Please tell me the formula." So Mr. Einstein said, and this is a very, very popular saying when it comes to storytelling. And Mr. Einstein replied, if you really want your child to be intelligent, tell him stories or maybe tell him fairy tales. And if you want your child to be more intelligent, tell him more for fairy tales. So this is the importance of stories to children. So if I elaborate it a little, children, when they're small, their world is very narrow. Their world is
Hmm.
comprised of mummy, papa, dada, dadi, siblings, or maybe few friends. They don't know the world outside this. But when you start narrating stories from different walks of life, it introduces a child to the whole world which he is going to face step by step. You're introducing, for example, बच्चा बहुत छोटा है and you're planning to enroll him for a play group or a school or something. You know that children have that fear, leaving mama out, leaving that comfort zone and going out. So before you do that, if you say that, when I was a child, my first day of school was so beautiful. My teachers were so nice. On the first day, they gave me a chocolate and they told me so many stories. They sang with me, we danced, and I returned home. It was such a wonderful day. Now, when you instill this perspective in child's mind through a story, the first day of the school is not going to be as horrible as he might have imagined in his head. Okay, so that is one thing, that you introduce them to another world which they haven't seen yet. Second thing, stories build linguistic ability. Okay. Nowadays, when English has become a very, very important language to speak, no matter whatever mother language you have, say I'm Gujarati and all my surroundings I have Gujarati, but if I want my child to learn English language or to be familiar with English language, what I will do is I will start telling him very, very simple stories in English. So I'm introducing him to a new language, and when it is in the form of story, it is going to make sense to him, and that is how his mind will accept that language. If you want to go one step ahead, when you're, and any which ways nowadays all children are going to English medium school, but they have their local language environment in the house, so there is a big clash between understanding the language. So through stories, parents can introduce a language to them, so that when they are going to learn all the subjects in that language, you're already familiar with it. Second thing, I can introduce as many vocabulary as I can. So I would like to tell a short story on this. That once I was telling a story to my child, and I said, and the donkey fell down in the water deliberately. And he said, what? Deliberately? What does that mean? Deliberately meaning जानबूझ के वो गिर गया अंदर. अच्छा, deliberately means जानबूझ के. Okay. I told this story 2-3 times and I emphasized on this word. And one day he was telling, Mom, I did this deliberately. So, how without even telling them that you are introducing them to new words, you can weave those words in your stories and you can tell them, and that's how you can build up on their language and the vocabulary skills, which are very, very important. Second thing, nowadays children have less focus and attention span. For whatever reason, I wouldn't go into it, but yes, they do have. But when you tell a story, you can grab all their attention and they would be hooked like this until you finish. So when you tell a story, you are not just enhancing their listening skills, but you are getting the opportunity to whatever that you want to tell them in that story, whatever that you want to teach them in that form of story. So if you really carefully choose the stories to tell your children, which otherwise they would not listen. Say, अगर मुझे मेरे बच्चे को explain करना है that we need to respect elders, मैं उसके सामने बैठ के उसको lecture देती हूँ, पता है हमको हमारे elders को respect करना चाहिए, ये हमारा culture है, ये हमारी संस्कृति है. Within 2 minutes the child is gone. Kid, I'm not bloody interested in this Sanskriti and culture. But if I say, once upon a time there was a boy, and that boy was not respecting elders, and what happened one day, and all I can do is I can be whatever that I want to in that story and tell the child, and the child will receive it without any resistance. So that is how you can teach whatever that you want to teach to your child in the form of stories. So that is another importance of story. Then you build an imagination skills, which is very, very, very important for children. And when I say imagination skill, you can build imagination skills only through oral storytelling. So जो आजकल के बच्चे कर रहे हैं, और मे बी इफ पेरेंट्स आर फीलिंग, अरे हमारे बच्चों को तो हम यूट्यूब पे कितने सारे स्टोरीज दिखाते हैं, मतलब वी आर कैटरिंग टू द स्टोरी टेलिंग नीड्स. लेट मी टेल you are not catering to their storytelling needs. You are not. You are simply killing their imagination. You are simply making them passive. Okay, because when I say storytelling, it always happens in a community setup where a granny and a grandson is sitting and they are enjoying the story. Okay, one thing. A second thing, when oral storytelling is happening, you have all the opportunity to cater to child's curiosity, which YouTube पे नहीं होगा. YouTube वाले अपना स्टोरी खत्म करके चले जाएंगे, बच्चा उठ के चला जाएगा. He would hardly receive anything from that story. But when you are telling stories, they have all the liberty to ask the questions that will Not develop their speaking skills, but that will always develop their thinking skills. Why it is happening like this? क्यों चांद रात में ही निकलता है, सुबह में नहीं निकलता है? They have all sort of questions what they want to ask when they are listening to a story. So yes, their thinking ability, their imagination, how now if they're watching a story on a TV, they see, okay, एक किंग है, एक क्वीन है, एक प्रिंस है, एक प्रिंसेस है, और एक है पैलेस. Everything is very well given in front of their eyes, so they know
Hmm.
this is how king looks like, this is how queen looks like, this is how prince princess looks like, और ऐसा ही पैलेस होता है. But when you are telling a story orally, and for example you have 10 children in front of you, all 10 children will have different image of a king, queen, prince, princess, and a palace.
True.
Then if you ask them, come on, draw it, you get to see so many perspectives. They are so creative. And that creativity can come out only through stories when you tell them. And the most important, that children develop a very, very, very strong bond with the
Hmm.
storyteller. Now, as a parent, if you are a storyteller and if you're telling your children all sort of happy stories, nice stories, your child, so when you are giving your time when they need, when they will grow up, they will give their time to you when you will need it.
Right.
Hmm.
That is the importance of storytelling, especially for children. There could be many more benefits than this, but this, and then, yeah, as I said, it develops thinking. You can instill values, you can instill morale, whatever, when you want to, because story gives you that space, gives you that opportunity. So, this is how, stories can be used. And of course it builds a lot of confidence. I mean, I use storytelling to build confidence in children by teaching them how to speak stories. I mean, the course which I run, that is public speaking through storytelling, where I teach them how to speak. Like, public speaking is the biggest fear, right? As they say, death is the second fear, but public speaking is the first fear.
First,
First
yeah.
fear.
Yes.
So when I was running my batch during this corona, I had to stop because I didn't want things to happen online. So I had a child on the day one. He was just not ready to come up and speak anything in front of whatever batch size that I had. And on the day one, he told me, ma'am, मुझे English बिल्कुल नहीं आती है. I said, कोई बात नहीं, ठीक है ना, सीख लेंगे. When I completed my course at the end of the fourth month, this boy was continuously talking with me in English. Not just that, he was delivering story in front of the 10 children that I had in the batch. Not just that, he gave a performance in his society.
Wow.
Wow.
So this is what you can do. I mean, story is really a magical tool that can be used the way you want to. If you're really creative, you can use stories the way you want to.
Right. So wonderfully put up, Unnati. So I feel that, it caters to all the developments that we generally look into. And
Correct.
what you mentioned, it is like your cognitive development is taken place, your language development is taken place, and with the movement and all of that, your motor development also is taken care of, right?
Correct. Correct.
Okay, so and it touches a lot of, I think, social, as you said, that bonding when the grandmother is telling the story to the child, or the mother is going to tell the story to the child, or the child is sitting with the father and the father is narrating a story. It creates a different bond by itself rather than sitting passive and just listening from an YouTube channel or from the TV. I don't think that caters to as much as, emotional bonding than when we are doing it our own selves. That is so important. So
Yeah,
as you said,
yeah,
when you gave the thing like, how it improves the vocabulary of a child, I think all the parents here and all the educators here, if they take up the stories for even subjects like, I think, history,
yeah.
geography, which we feel sometimes they are like really dry subjects, and if they put it up in the form of a story, I think children will start loving all those subjects all the more.
So you know what happened once we were me along with my mentor Sharon, we were conducting demo sessions for children, and in that demo session we had a story, the STEM story, which you say through STEM
Yeah,
stories you teach concepts, right?
concepts.
So
Yes.
so there was a story on digestive system. So we
Okay.
told the story in a very engaging manner. Sharon told the story in a very, very engaging manner. And at the end of the story, we asked, okay, who wants to define a digestive system? So there were many children, 8 years, 9 years, 10 years. But there was a girl who was just 5 years old, and she was able to describe the entire
Right.
digestive system.
I'm
And
sure.
yeah, yeah. So this is what you can do through stories. And when it is presented in the form of stories, it stays for quite a long time in your mind.
So I think stories
Hmm.
need not be all the time once upon a time like that, you know. So, Unnati, now that we are talking about, the stories, like as you mentioned about the digestive system also can be taught through stories, and history and geography can be, taught through stories. So what kind of stories can be told to children? And, when we talk about emotional bonds, so like when we tell them, show me how you're happy, sad, angry, all of these emotions, does it help to connect with their emotions?
Stories helps only and only to connect to emotions, because storytelling is not a head to head connection.
Yeah.
Story is always a heart to heart connection, and
Hmm.
emotions. Heart is the place where we experience emotions.
Right.
So, whatever emotions you want to instill in your child, whatever emotions you want your child to demonstrate, it is all possible through stories. So, when as a storyteller, I'm telling a story, very important for me as a storyteller first to feel that emotions. If I tell a story like this, once upon a time in a small village there lived two girls, and these two girls were like not very friendly. It's not going to make any impact on you. Like, please stop this. I don't want to listen to this crap. Okay.
Yeah.
But when I say you are once upon a time in the middle of the ocean, there was a palace. And in that palace, there lived an octopus princess. You see how am I connecting with your emotions when I'm telling a story? So story is only about connecting to emotions. Now that requires a skill. You just cannot be very, very dry, or you can't be very flat when you are telling a story. So far as your objective is to bring that emotions out. So, whatever emotion that you want to introduce to your child, very important as a storyteller, you first feel that emotions, you bring out that emotions in the story, and then you present that story to the child. And I assure you, your child, along with you, will feel that emotions. Why child laugh aloud when they see cartoons? Laughing is also an emotion. Why
Mm.
they feel scared when they are seeing something horrible or a horror movie? It's an emotion. Why we cry when we see movies? Why we feel disgusted about anything when we are watching something like that? Because they are all uh, aggravating certain emotions through their own way of storytelling. Now, it could be
Hmm.
anything. It's not necessary, it is oral storytelling, not necessary. But yes, so it helps at a large level to impact their emotions. Empathy is the biggest thing you can teach children through stories, and empathy is the very, very important emotion that can be instilled in children,
Hmm.
that too through stories. So it touches because it's a heart to heart connection, and because it goes directly to your subconscious level, it stays there, and it builds the foundation,
Right.
so
I
that is yeah.
I want to share this, Unnati, now that you're talking about this. I remember, being an educator and being a teacher for pre-primary school and all, we were all taught, okay, everything you're supposed to teach in stories. So sorry to interrupt. I didn't mean to
No, no,
interrupt.
please go
But I
ahead.
wanted to share this. I had started reading books for my child right from the time he was born, and he had a nook for the books as he grew up. So when we wanted him to be potty trained, he just was not ready to sit on the pot. He was very scared कि मैं नीचे गिर जाऊंगा and I'll be flushed. That was the thought. So I remember we got him a book on potty training. It is a storybook on potty
Correct.
training where there's a baby just like him, so he could relate to that so well. And he said,
Yes,
Acha,
yes.
he can do it, why can't I? It's from
Exactly.
that book.
So you see how they are relating it to it. So
Yes,
your child very constructively managed to deal with that emotion
emotion, yes.
from being scared to facing it and doing it just because he saw that other child is doing, so it's okay for me to do. मुझे कुछ नहीं होगा.
नहीं होगा. Yeah. Right. So I
Correct.
think we could remove the fear also. Every time we took him to the washroom, he would be like, नहीं जाना है, नहीं जाना है, मम्मा कुछ कर देगी
Correct.
मुझे, like that.
Yes, so as a parent or as an educator, if you know exactly what is the fear or what is that one thing you want your child to be good at, या फिर you want your child to, जैसे you said, remove a fear, you can always take out such stories and keep on telling. It may happen
True.
you may not get result in first go, तो ऐसा कभी expect भी मत करना that you will get a result at one go, but keep on doing it until you get a result. Getting
True.
a result is a sure shot thing, but
Yeah.
every child will have a different way of responding to it. That is also a very very, so मैं, if I am telling as a storyteller कि yes, it connects us on an emotional level, आप कुछ भी सिखा सकते हो, that is true, but every child's receiving ability is different. And so
Very well said,
as a
Unnati,
parent,
very well.
yeah,
And you were very precise in whatever you are saying, Unnati, because whatever discussion we are having is very open-ended. So anything that we give, parents will or educators will take it as कि ये एक बार में चमत्कार हो जाएगा. But very, very
right.
precisely you mentioned about each and every detail. Unnati, my
Hmm.
next question is like whenever we talk about stories. So children always, even adults, I have heard them, यार बच्चों का काम है storytelling. So are
Mhm.
stories only limited to children? Because as they grow older, for example, if in a class for grade 8, if I enter and if I start telling that our storytelling session hoga, I'm sure all the children in that class will tell, ma'am अभी हम nursery में नहीं जाते हैं, so take out books and make us study. So I just want to open this, that are stories only for children or is it for everybody?
Stories are for everybody. We cannot live without stories. Children who are refusing stories are also reading stories or telling stories. Maybe the definition of story might have changed. It might have changed from once
Yes,
upon a time to a gossip story. But
true.
they are listening to stories. So yes, so what can be done here is there are age specific stories. As
Hmm.
child grows, their interest level also grows. 5 साल के बच्चे को जो स्टोरी आप सुना रहे हो, जरूरी नहीं है वो 15 साल का बच्चा भी एंजॉय करे. So story should be changed. Storytelling shouldn't be changed.
True.
उस तो वो जो लेवल है उस लेवल को आइडेंटिफाई करो एंड यू हैव टू, आई मीन एज अ स्टोरी टेलर यू हैव टू डू लॉट ऑफ रिसर्च ऑफ कोर्स, एंड दिस इज
Hmm.
समथिंग वेयर हार्ड वर्क कम्स, मतलब मैं एक स्टोरी चूज करने के लिए आई गो थ्रू 10-15 stories, then I get one story that touches me here, and when I know it touches me here, it will touch to my listener also. I will be able to make that touch to my listener also. So stories are for everybody, even for adults. Nowadays during this pandemic, I have seen many storytelling sessions happening for adults. Stories are different, but It is story. There are stories. And so stories are for everyone. I will never buy this idea that somebody can refuse story. No, they cannot. They may refuse the story which is not of their interest.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But if you're telling a right story, they will never refuse. And that is how, in counseling, in healing sessions, this healers or counselors are using stories. They are using stories on a very, very wild scale. Why is that? And the children counselors who are dealing with 15 years, 16 years, 17 years, 18 years, they are also using stories, no?
Hmm.
So storytelling and stories are for everyone. If you think that this story is not working, that means you have to change the story.
Absolutely.
So I
So
think
very well said, Unnati. And I'll just underline and highlight what you mentioned, that to tell stories, there is a lot of back end research that has to be done, you know. So if as a teacher or as an educator of grade 8, if I tell that my children refuse to listen to stories, that means I've picked up the wrong thing. So stories
correct.
are for everybody. It's that my research is lacking somewhere. That is why I think I'm not able to connect. So very, very good tip from your side. Thank you, Unnati. Over to
Thank
you,
you.
Hiren.
Yes. So now that you mentioned about even healers and therapists using stories, to help, it can be anybody, it can be children or it can be an adult for that matter. So, can practicing the story recital a number of times, can it help reduce the risk of forgetfulness? So this happens generally when exams are coming closer, for children, and they need to really understand and remember a lot of things, right? And they will tend to miss out on that one important point. So, in case
Yes,
if they make it like a story recital, will it help, to reduce that risk of forgetfulness?
it will indeed. Okay, it will indeed. So I have, so let me share one example that when I wanted to start my public speaking through storytelling classes, I had conducted a demo session to just give them a feel, what am I going to do, etc., because this was a very new concept. And then for some reason I could not start my class as I planned, and it took quite a long time for me, like 2.5 months, of course. But in the demo class I had taught them a story. Okay, and that was a very short story, but and within 1 hour I could manage to teach them the story to tell. After 2.5 months, when I was about to start my classes, one of my friend's son was there in the demo class. So I called my friend and I asked, would you like to enroll your child? So he said, Pata nahi, he might have forgotten the story. I don't know, let me check with him. So I said, okay, check and let me know. So after 2-3 hours, he called me and he said, Unnati, my son still remembered the story the way you taught. मतलब exactly word to word वो अभी भी वैसे ही बोल रहा है. It's 2.5 months you had taught only for 1 hour, but still that story is so much there in his mind, and this is a practical thing that has happened. So yes, it reduces the risk of forgetfulness. Any concept which you feel is really difficult for you, and if you do little bit of hard work and form it in a form of story, make it in a form of story and try to remember it that way, I tell you, you will never forget that,
True.
because we never forget stories. I don't remember any theory that I have learned in my school days, but I still remember the stories that I had heard from those days. It still is same the way it was, because
Yes.
as I said, it actually connects our neurons. It really established that very strong connection inside our
Hmm.
brain, and that is how stories can be used to reduce the risk of forgetfulness. But now whenever I talk about हाँ हाँ story से हम ये कर सकते हैं, हाँ हम story से सब कुछ कर सकते हैं, but for that you really have to work on it. I mean,
Yes.
you have to really, मतलब you have to identify कहाँ पे बच्चे को प्रॉब्लम हो रही है, कैसे मैं उसको स्टोरी में फॉर्म करके उसे सिखाऊं, so that he won't forget.
Very well said. Very well. Thank you so
Ye-
much, Unnati, for this clarity because it was very much needed. Because as we always mention, that stories are magical, they are magical. And children, adults, everybody falls in love when it comes to correct storytelling. I will use this word
Correct.
now because every age has its own story. So, what a 5-year-old may enjoy, a 15-year-old will definitely not enjoy. So, how to
Correct.
create an engaging story, a magical formula? Can you throw some light on this, Unnati?
Yeah, sure, sure. So, any story typically have a starting, like a beginning, a middle, and an end. Now, if I say a thirsty crow, okay? Now, if thirsty crow, the crow is flying, is very thirsty, and he could see a pond, he drinks water, he flew away. Is that a story? क्या है यार? This is not a story. A fox who wants to eat grapes. Acha, grapes. Okay, it's very nearby. He eats and he goes away. Is it a story?
No.
It's not a story. Okay, so typically, if you want to create an engaging story, you can search. There is a formula called a hero's journey. Cinderella's hero's journey. If you will search on Google, you will find out that what are the steps, one by one by one by one, what are the steps an ideal story should have. So that's a long thing to explain, so I'm not going into that zone, but you can search on Google and you will find how an engaging story can be created, but it should typically have a beginning and a character, and the middle part is very very important, because until the character faces a problem or a challenge, and then there is a struggle to face that problem, to conquer that challenge, and to move towards the end, you cannot form a good story. So a
True.
good and engaging story should have this three part: beginning, middle, and end. There should be a problem, and there should be a formula how a character is dealing with the problem and overcoming and moving to his normal life. So that is the way of selecting any story. Now, this is a technical part, but if you are telling stories to children, now this is a part of a storyteller. Okay, so I can't be flat when I'm telling story to children. When you are telling a story to children, the tools that you should use is your voice and your voice modulation. तो अगर मैं कहती हूँ, and the mouse was running on the lion suddenly woke up and he got so angry that he, it's going to be very interesting for a child. But if I said, and the mouse was running on lion, and the lion woke up, and the lion said, hey, why are you running on me? So this is the formula. This is also a part of formula to create and to tell a story in an engaging way. When especially you are telling a story to children, exaggeration works a lot. You have to
Hmm.
really exaggerate. और वहां पे एक बहुत बड़ी बिल्ली थी, तो बच्चों को बहुत मजा आएगा. Now this may not work for 15, 17 years old child, please. I
True.
mean, right? So that way उस तरह से आपको प्लान करना पड़ेगा. So story telling needs differ from age to age. Because I work with children a lot, I know more about children's storytelling. So, one is exaggeration works. Use your eyebrows when you are telling a story. Using an eyebrow makes lots of difference in your facial expressions. So when I'm saying once upon a time, and when I'm saying once upon a time, see, you see the kind of my, the way my facial expressions are changing just because I'm raising my eyebrows. So, how you use your eyebrows, how you use your voice, how much of that exaggeration element you can bring in the story will also create a very, very engaging story for children. And you know what, children are very see, they are very honest. They don't know how to please others, and they will never please you. तो अगर आप अच्छे स्टोरी टेलर नहीं हो, फिर भी आप उनको स्टोरी बोल रहे हो, दे विल टेल यू ऑन फेस, हमको बिल्कुल मजा नहीं आया।
Yes.
Agreed, agreed.
तो वो ऐसा फीडबैक, इसका मतलब ये नहीं आप उनको स्टोरी कहना बंद कर दो, उसका मतलब ये है इम्प्रोवाइज योर सेल्फ।
Hmm.
Perfect. Perfect.
तो
So
ये
coming to that, Unnati, now that we have a storyteller in the house, we and you've told us the magic formula. So we are not going to leave you until you tell us a story. So we are, waiting, and our ears are waiting to hear a nice
so
story from you.
are all questions over, so that at the end I want to tell a story, and want to give everyone who's listening a very nice experience.
Yes, yes.
Yes,
So
yes,
Last minute,
Unnati. All
done
the
with the
questions
question.
are over and you can continue with the story.
Okay, so can you give me a moment? I'll just be back, because I've been talking and talking. I need to have
Yes.
some water before I tell a
Sure,
story.
sure, sure, Unnati.
Just a
Sure,
moment, I'll be back. Yeah.
sure.
till then, I
So,
want to.
Hiran, today's session really is very engaging. I'm sure that we all are learning lots and lots because whatever we talk today about story, about engagement, I think it all depends on how you are telling a story. So, Hiran,
Sorry.
I know that you are a very good storyteller. Till Unnati comes back, I will put you on the spotlight. कुछ एक
Yes,
छोटा
I
सा
was
कुछ
just
भी.
coming to that. I was just coming to that. That when we have these nice little props for the story. So yes, I'm going to tell. Uh, I think one thing more we need to remember about storytelling is about voice modulation. So that's so
Hmm.
important. So when we go about voice modulation, so if it's a snail, I'll go with "oh, hello," as slow as a snail. Right. Perfect. So Unnati is here and then she's going to take this forward. And while the snail is
Yeah.
slowly going back to its place, Unnati is here for us.
Yeah, so
Okay,
before I
Unnati, we are
start
ready.
my so before I start my story, I want to say something. I owe everything so far as storytelling is concerned to my mentor, Sharon Matthews. It's very unfair if I don't give her a credit, and if I start telling a story as a storyteller, it's my responsibility to give her due credit. It is just because of Sharon Matthews. Unnati Shah is what Unnati Shah. She
Wow,
has
that's great.
learned to deal with her fear. She has learned to polish her language, or she has learned whatever that she has learned in storytelling is just because of Sharon. And I owe everything to Sharon Matthews. That's it. So
Wow,
yes,
wonderful,
I'm ready to tell the
wonderful.
story now. Yeah. So once upon a time, in a small village of India, there lived two sisters. One had only one hair, and so she was called one haired. And the other had two hairs, and so she was called two hairs. Now, two hairs always teased one hair. One hair looks so ugly. You have got only one hair. Look at me. I'm so beautiful. I have got two hairs. Even their mother praised two hairs because she was having two hairs. Oh, two hair, my darling. You look so beautiful. And two hair used to blushed. But this hurt one hair. And so she said, nobody likes me. Everybody is just teasing me. I don't want to stay here. I want to go away from here. And saying this, one hair started walking towards the woods. And as she was walking towards the woods, suddenly she heard something. So she looked around. Water, water, water. Oh, there is somebody who is in need of water. They need my help. And so one hare just went in that direction from where that sound was coming. And there she saw a dried mango tree. And the dried mango tree wanted to have water. So one hare said, don't worry, I will give you water. And she rushed towards the lake. She cupped her hands and she watered. She gave enough water to the mango tree, and the dry mango tree turned into a beautiful mango tree. And the tree said, thank you, One Hair, thank you. I will never forget this help of yours, One Hair. Now, One Hare did not expect anything in return, and she continued to walk. And as she was walking, once again she heard something. "Mm, I am hungry. Please help me. Mm." So one had said, oh, there is somebody once again who's looking for some help. And she rushed once again in the direction from where the voice was coming. And she saw a cow who had a nook tied around her neck, and she ran and she loosened that nook and she plucked some leaves, she plucked some grass, she plucked some fruits and gave that to the cow to eat. And the cow started eating. And once the cow ate, it gave a very healthy moo. I shall never forget this health, One Hare. And One Hare did not expect anything in return, and she continued to walk towards the woods. It was really a hot day, and One Hare was very tired and she was very thirsty. She just wanted to have some water. And she looked at far, she saw a small hut. She was very happy and she rushed there. And as she reached near the hut, she saw an old lady inside. So One Hare was really scared at first to go inside. And when the old lady looked at One Hare, she said, hello, One Hare. Come inside. I have been waiting for you. One Hare. No, but no. Don't be scared, One Hare. Come inside. And One Hare went inside the hut. She drank some water, and then the old lady gave her 2 cups. One was full with oil, and the other was full with shampoo. Now, One Hare had only one hair, and so she took a drop of an oil and oiled her hair. And then she took a drop of a shampoo and she poured it. And she poured water and she wiped her head. And as she removed the towel, her head was full with this beautiful hair, and One Hare was so happy with so much of hair on her head, and she rushed out and she thanked the old lady. Oh, old lady, thank you so much, thank you so much. And immediately she rushed toward her house. On the way, the cow gave her a bowl full of white and creamy and frothy milk, and the mango tree gave her a basket full of mangoes, and One Hare continued to run. And as she reached her house, she saw 2 hares over there, and she said, 2 hares, look at me, I've got so many hair. 2 Hare was shocked seeing One Hare with so much of hair, and she said, oh, One Hare, you look so beautiful. How did you get so much of hair? And one had told her everything that happened with her. Two hair, without even wasting a single second, she rushed towards the woods. On the way, she also heard and she said, "Uh-oh, I don't have time for this." And she kept on running. And on the way, she also heard, "Oh, help me. Uh-oh, I don't have time for this." And she immediately rushed to the hut. And she stood out of the hut and said, "Hello, old lady. Two hair has come. Please come out." So the old lady came out and said, "Welcome to Hares. I was expecting you. Come inside." And Two Hair went inside, and once again the old lady gave her two cups, one with oil, one with shampoo. And Two Hair, even though she had just two hairs, she poured the entire bowl of oil. Everywhere there was oil, 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 and she poured the entire bowl of shampoo and she poured water, zzz, 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 and she wiped. Ah! The Two Hair also fell down, and Two Hair was I have become a body. And she rushed towards her house, and on the way the cow and that mango tree laughed at and To Her continued to rush and rushed and rushed, and she reached home, and there she saw One Hair, and she cried and said, "One Hair, I lost my two hairs. I've become a bald." But One Hair was such a lovely girl. She went near Two Hair and she hugged her and she said, "Oh, my dear sister, whether you have hair or you don't have hair, whether you are tall or short, whether you are thin or fat, I still love you so much. You are my dearest, dearest sister." And then on, One Hair and Two Hairs lived happily ever after. That is the end of my story.
Awesome, awesome. We were so engrossed in the story. We wanted to know what would be, we didn't want it to end. We wanted to hear more and more.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for listening to me, because as a storyteller, it's an honor when somebody listens to you with so much of attention. So thank you so much for being that.
But you are very expressive, Unnati. Let me tell you
Thank
that your
you.
facial expressions, they altogether tell a different story, when you're continuing with your story. Believe
Yeah.
me, it was really very, very, very entertaining, for both of us to listen to you. The voice modulation and how to remember, कि दादी का आवाज अलग है, one hair का आवाज अलग है, cow का, how to remember. I was just thinking at the back of the mind, कि सबका आवाज
Yeah.
अलग है, कैसे याद रखना है.
So it requires practice. As a
Mm.
storyteller, when you want to do this, I have practiced this story not less than 15-20 times.
Oh,
Only then
great.
and then I am able to deliver it like that. So as
Wow,
a
that's
story, yeah.
great.
So when you are a professional storyteller, you need to do this because you're performing in front of so many people. And
True,
then there
true,
are
true.
certain voice and speech exercises that professional storytellers do that enhances your vocal
Voice.
cords. Otherwise, it is not
Mm-hmm.
possible to take out such sort of voice. It damages
True.
your vocal cords.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
My snail stopped and was listening to you.
how sweet! Thank you so much, cute little snail.
Yes. So, Harsha, if
Thank
you can
you.
give us the summary.
Yeah, sure, sure. So, first of all, Unnati, thank you so much for being on this show with us. And really, it was a very entertaining and engaging show today because the stories, me and Hiran both are in love with storytelling, So, it's a love session that I think today, it's not an educative session, I would say. It is a passionate session that we conducted today. So, to sum up what you said, Unnati, there are a lot of highlights of today's show. So I'll just brief what came to my mind and what connected me. So the first thing that you said, Unnati, 65% of interaction is through stories. And I completely agree to that, that yes, when it comes to storytelling, absolutely it connects to anybody, more than 65%. Unnati, second, when you mentioned about that we all are wired by stories, so that is what I would really like to highlight, that yes, we all are wired through stories. It's just that at times we don't identify, and we feel कि अभी हम बड़े हो गए हैं, so storytelling is nothing. But very rightly you mentioned that every single conversation that we do is a storytelling art. So that is a very big highlight. Second, you mentioned about the research that a storyteller, as an educator, if I have to use this storytelling in my classroom, I have to be a good researcher. Second, you mentioned that you have to work on your speaking skills, your communication skills, your vocal cord, as you mentioned. So these are the things that if you want to make your class very creative, or as a parent you want to be creative, I think there are lot of hard work that goes into
Yes.
storytelling. Then you mentioned about storytelling being a powerful tool to connect and to bond emotionally. I will completely agree 10 on 10 to that, because a very nice example you gave about deliberate word, that I would say. We always, look for tuition classes when we want to inculcate or make our children learn a new language. But with stories, it's so easy. I mean, it's really easy, and I'm going to try this for sure, short, Unnati, because every day we, struggle कि बच्चे English medium school में जाते हैं, but they don't speak good English. But
Correct.
this tool everybody has in their own houses, So it could be just a simple storytelling. जैसे thirsty crow का आपने बताया, fox का. There are lot of new words that the children can, come across and they can use in their daily vocabulary. So other many takeaways, Unnati, but this was very, very insightful, very, very interactive, and one of the most liveliest sessions that we've conducted. Unnati,
Thank
on
you.
behalf of H2 Edu Associates, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me here,
Thank
for giving me this
you.
1 hour.
Thank
And one,
you, Nati, for taking care
welcome.
of us.
How sweet. That is so lovely. I love such sort of puppets. That's lovely. That's lovely. And one thing about the forgetfulness I forgot to
Hmm.
tell is that that's a point now. That's a point I wanted to say, that we can recall facts up to 22 times more effectively when they are part of story rather than just an isolated data. Sorry, I
Wow.
missed telling this. So this is the research that
That's
says that
great.
you can remember anything 22 times more when you try to remember it through story than simply by some whatever information or a theory.
Wow.
Wonderful. So I think when parents are struggling with forgetfulness, I think if this
Yeah.
is the counseling that as educators or as teachers, if we are able to give to the parents, I think सस्ते में बहुत अच्छा काम हो जाएगा. Let me put it this way,
Yes.
you don't have to
Correct.
invest too
Correct.
much, and it's just home ground. अपने घर में story, every mom is a good storyteller. It's just that
And
how you use those stories creatively will make wonders.
so, mom and dad, I mean, parents, grandparents, no professional storytellers can take their places. Never.
True, true.
If you make your child sit in your lap and tell them stories, you need not to send them anywhere. That is the
Very
best
well.
ground to learn for children, and that is what they want when they when they say, "Tell us a story." It is not just the story; they are seeking the time of togetherness with their
Mm-hmm.
parents or grandparents, and with that
True,
love and
true.
affection, whatever you're gonna tell them, present them, they will definitely absorb. They are so tender, they will definitely absorb. They just want love, nothing else.
Wonderful, Unnati. And we really look forward for more associations with you, Unnati, in future. So
Me
thank you
too,
so
me
much
too.
for this.
You're
Hiran,
welcome.
Yes, Unnati, as I mentioned that, we loved your session. Thank you so much for being a part of H2 Edu Associates.
My
This was
pleasure.
one part of storytelling, so we are looking forward for more things, to hear more things from you about storytelling. As Harsha mentioned, this is open-ended and there can be tons of
Yeah,
things when it comes to storytelling. So we'll wish to have you further in our sessions. Thank you so much, Unnati,
sure.
for your time.
thank
Thanks,
you. Bye
thanks,
bye,
Harsha.
Unnati. Bye.
Thanks,
Thank
Siran.
you. Thank you.
Bye, bye.